The Chicago Sky just traded Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream for 2 late first-round picks and a second-round swap. 2 late picks. That is what a franchise handed over for a 2-time All-Star, the holder of the single-season rebounding record, and a player who posted double-doubles almost every other night on the court. In Chicago's front office, they slept just fine that night. No hesitation, no regrets, no competing offers needed. They saw the deal, they took it, and they moved on. So the question every serious basketball observer needs to sit with right now is this: why would a professional franchise willingly unload a player who looks that productive, and why would they take so little to do it? The answer to that question cuts right to the heart of what has been quietly happening inside that locker room, inside those box scores, and inside the manufactured rivalry that Angel Reese built with Caitlin Clark. Because the Chicago Sky did not just reveal a roster decision, they revealed everything they actually think about the player they just gave away. Let's go back to the beginning, because context matters here. Angel Reese arrived in Chicago in 2024 carrying enormous momentum, a national championship from LSU, a social media following that made brands and sponsors pay attention before she played a single professional minute. She was presented to the public as a franchise cornerstone, a personality who could sell tickets and drive conversation, a star in the making. And on the surface, the box scores seemed to back it up. She was putting up numbers that would make casual fans assume the Sky were building something real. Double-doubles, an all-star selection, then a second one, and then the all-time single-season rebounding record. Those are the kinds of numbers that get highlighted on SportsCenter, that get cited in trade discussions, that get used to justify maximum contracts. Except the Chicago Sky went 13-27 in her first season, and then 10-34 in her second. That is not a team trending upward. That is a franchise in free fall. And when you're a front office watching those records pile up, you are not looking at all-star selections. You are looking at the win column every single time. And the win column got worse every single year she suited up in that uniform. Now here is where the rebounding record demands a closer look, because this is the detail that changes the entire conversation. A significant portion of Angel Reese's rebounds during that record-breaking campaign came directly off her own missed shots. The basketball community started calling them me-bounds, and the term stuck for a reason. The sequence went like this. Reese would fire up a contested attempt near the basket, miss it, recover the ball herself, and the official box score logged that recovery as a rebound. Statistically, it looks like production. In real terms, what actually happened was 2 possessions consumed to arrive back at exactly the starting point. No progress, 2 opportunities spent, 0 net advancement. That is not rebounding in any meaningful sense. That is statistical inflation in a package that looks valuable until you run the math on what it actually cost. And then there is the shooting. Reese's field goal percentage sat at 39% in 2024. She nudged it up to approximately 42% in 2025, but her three-point shooting remained near 18% across both seasons. 18% is not a shooting number you work around. 18% is a number defenses simply ignore. When a post player cannot knock down an outside shot with any consistency whatsoever, opposing defenses have no reason to respect the perimeter. They collapse every single time the ball goes near her. They pack the paint, they double and recover, and her effectiveness near the basket suffered directly because of that. You cannot have a primary interior option shooting below 50% on shots under 5 feet from the basket, which she was, and ask a professional coaching staff to keep running their offense through her. But here is the element that rarely gets discussed, and that may matter more than any individual shooting percentage. Angel Reese was not creating anything for her teammates. There were no meaningful pick-and-roll reads coming from her position, no real passing out of the post that created open looks for cutters or shooters, no secondary offensive actions that put other players in better positions to score. A player who genuinely makes her team better does not just produce her own numbers, she generates opportunities for the people around her. Reese was consuming possessions, multiple possessions in many cases, to generate the same output that an efficient player produces in one, and Chicago was losing more games every year she was doing it. Compare that to what was happening in Indiana during that exact same stretch. Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA as a rookie and broke 62 individual records in her first professional season. 62! The Indiana Fever went to the playoffs for the first time in 9 years, and perhaps more importantly, the players around Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, all performed at measurably higher levels because of how Clark ran the offense. She created open looks, she found cutters, she ran the pick and roll in ways that put defenders in impossible positions, which opened up the entire floor for everyone else on the court. That is what genuine basketball impact looks like in practice. That is a point guard who actually makes her team better, not just her own stat line. And this is precisely the comparison that Angel Reese could never escape, because Reese herself chose to make it central to her public identity. The so-called rivalry between Reese and Clark was not something that developed organically from close competition on the court. It was manufactured, amplified on social media, packaged for content, and pushed relentlessly. Reese leaned into it as a branding strategy. She positioned herself as the counterweight to Clark's star power, the player who represented a different kind of excellence. But here's the problem with that positioning. The actual basketball outcomes refused to cooperate. Clark was in Indiana, dragging her franchise into the playoffs and elevating her teammates. Reese was in Chicago, accumulating individual numbers while her team posted one of the worst records in the entire league. The rivalry framing required people to treat them as comparable stars. The standings made that case very hard to maintain. And then the off-court situation started deteriorating in ways that made the basketball underperformance feel secondary. On opening night of the 2025 WNBA season in Indiana, Reese publicly claimed that she was the victim of discrimination during the game. The league investigated that accusation. They found no evidence to support it. Right there, in Game 1 of her second professional season, her default response to something uncomfortable on the court was not to redirect her energy into the game itself. It was to escalate, to make it louder, to bring in external frameworks that had nothing to do with basketball. And that set the tone for everything that followed over the course of that season. Then came the Courtney Vanderloot situation, and this one is worth slowing down on considerably. Vanderloot had torn her ACL and was in the middle of recovering from that injury when Reese went publicly on the record to discuss the team's roster future. She told reporters that Chicago couldn't rely on Vanderloot to come back at the age she was at, and that the team needed someone probably a little younger with some experience, someone who had been playing the game and was willing to compete for a championship. Those words were not a slip. They were not a private frustration that a reporter extracted against her will. She said them directly on the record about a teammate who was sitting at home recovering from torn ligament surgery. Courtney Vanderloot is a 2-time WNBA champion, a 5-time All-Star, a 2-time first-team WNBA selection. She left the New York Liberty, a championship-caliber organization, specifically to come help Chicago build something, and Reese publicly dismissed her while she was injured and unable to respond on the court. That kind of comment doesn't stay in a press conference. It follows you into the locker room every single morning after. Every player on that roster read those words and understood exactly what Reese thought of teammates the moment they stopped being immediately useful to her. It didn't stop there. Camila Cardoso, Reese's own front court partner and the player Chicago was quietly beginning to identify as their actual long-term foundation, reportedly walked out on Reese at some point during the 2025 season. When the player who shares the floor with you every night, who is supposed to be your closest basketball ally on the roster, reaches the point where she would rather leave than continue to deal with the dynamic in that locker room, you cannot smooth that over with a team dinner or a meeting with the coaching staff. That is the kind of fracture that reorganizes everything around it. In September of 2025, Reese told the Chicago Tribune that the team needed to stop settling, that they needed to go out and get good players and great players, and what they had done this past year was not enough. On paper, those words can be read as accountability, as someone demanding higher standards from the organization. but she published those statements while still under contract, while those same teammates were still playing out the final games of the season, and the front office she was criticizing was the one responsible for her own professional future in that city. That is not leadership. That is burning down the house on the way out and then handing the organization the match. The suspension came in September 2025, officially listed as conduct detrimental to the team. She also picked up an automatic additional suspension from collecting her 8th technical foul of the season. Suspensions like that don't come after one difficult week. They come after a front office has spent months documenting a pattern, exhausting quieter internal options that didn't work, and ultimately deciding that putting the situation on paper officially is the only remaining tool available. Once that documentation existed, the trade question moved from whether to when and for what. After the suspension, Reese did not return to the court for the final 3 games of the season, citing a back injury. Footage circulating around the same time showed her at an event